Um, one of the interesting things that has been taking place is in the Biden transition. Transitions are always interesting because there's always this question of what is the president elect going to do? Regardless of what they said in the primaries, regardless of what they said during the election, there's still this question, especially if it wasn't a mandate. Meaning, if it wasn't the person saying, I'm going to pass health care. That's my job. That's what I'm going to do. I don't care if anything else. We could have aliens attacking, and I'm going to be running, trying to get my last vote in to pass health care. My name is, I don't know, Bernie Sanders. Or I'm going to work on military policy like a Tulsi Gabbard. Or even for Obama, I'm going to pass the Affordable Care Act. Whatever that meant. I'm making a point that when a politician runs, and they runs on a very specific mandate, that's one thing. But what happens when they don't? What happens when it's just what I'm going to give you and what I'm going to give the American public is what the American public needs? Joe Biden. All right, now I'm going to take a nap. When that's the case, and you have people who basically, the majority of which, overwhelming majority, don't even like the guy. They just think it is my duty as an American to get Donald Trump out of office. So I don't care what Joe Biden does. I'll vote for him. When you're in that scenario, where you've inverted the politics, where it's no longer, I'm going to vote to get this guy in office because, we have a pandemic and, we have 30 million people out of a job and, we have climate devastation and, we have fires burning down California. When you have all of those issues, all of these people being thrown out of their homes, all of these people losing their jobs, and the best that the Democratic candidate can do is, I am going to give you Joe Biden. Well, when that's the case, you have no idea what you're going to get. But I would argue you do know what you're going to get. That I don't know what I'm going to get is just there, that wish, that hope, that you put this guy in office and hopefully he'll do something to ratify the reason that you put him in office. I felt the same way with Trump. I didn't vote for Trump, but when Trump got in, I thought to myself, there's a potential here. He's not beholden to the Republicans. He's not beholden to the Democrats. Maybe he would pull those troops out of the Middle East. Maybe he would increase the wage to $10 an hour. Maybe he'll do these things. Didn't expect him because he's a Republican, but the hope was there. And right now, I know a lot of lefties, a lot of people who voted for that Democrat on things that he said in the primary that he wasn't going to live up to, but there's hope. On things that he said in the general that he doesn't have to live up to, but there's hope. And the way that hope either gets dashed or at the very least emboldened, at the very least in the beginning during transition, are the people who they put into those offices. I like to say people or policy. And the person gives a clear indication of what the person is going to do. If Joe Biden chooses Rahm Emanuel, I guarantee you it's not going to be for anything pertaining to left-wing politics. This is the man who hid the execution of a black man in order to protect the cops in Chicago. Literally hid it. The video had to be leaked in order to kind of pull that apart. The same guy who hid the fact that lead was all throughout the water system in various areas and neighborhoods in Chicago, while at the same time this was going on in Flint, Michigan. Hid it. I'm making the point that if you bring somebody like that into your administration, there's a certain, perspective that person is going to have in politics. And that perspective and that history gives you an idea of what they're going to do. Rahm Emanuel is being considered, right here. The president is strongly considering Rahm Emanuel to run the Department of Transportation, weighing the former Chicago mayor's experience on infrastructure spending against the concerns for progressives. The concerns for progressives, I will give you a heads up, don't matter. It's one of three things. Either Joe Biden is making these choices to trigger progressives. Either Joe Biden is entirely apathetic about what progressives think and want, or it's a little bit of both. I'm choosing these people because I like them, and the fact that it annoys progressives, just a little bit better. My assumption, my idea of this, is lefties are being put on notice. I don't need you. I don't need you to such an extent, or you're a captive audience to such an extent. Like you told the other guy, go vote for the other guy. If you don't like my climate policy, vote for the other guy. If you don't like my healthcare policy, go vote for the other guy. That is explicitly an understanding you have nowhere else to go. And progressives, the lefties, tells him, we don't like you saying that, but you're right, so okay. Joe Biden is going to put Republicans in administration. He's going to put Rahm Emanuel, most likely, regardless of the complaints. He's going to put in Neera Tanden for Office of Management and Budget. Also, I wouldn't even be shocked if Deborah Wasserman Schultz comes strengthening the administration. Can you imagine him bringing in Hillary Clinton? I don't know, Deborah Wasserman Schultz, head of election integrity. Hillary Clinton, head of national security or some kind of national security advisor. And what are progressives going to do? Nothing! Nothing! You're going to do squat. You're going to sit on Twitter and complain. You're going to go on writing articles, complaining. You're going to talk about our history. You're going to talk about all of these things that they did in their political campaigns during their time trying to be president, all of these things that they did to progressives, all of these hits, and all of it. You're going to talk about all that stuff. And at the end of it, none of it mattered because you voted for Biden. And Biden has been in politics for 40-something years, and it was not unclear what he was going to do when he got into that office, especially when each and every lever of influence you had evaporated the moment he won. Your influence was before he got elected. Your influence was when there was a question of whether he could get elected. Your influence was the ability to look in the face of the abyss and still say, despite me seeing the abyss, I am not going to immediately give over my constitutional right to have that guy represent my interests and come in and get my vote. And if 20 million people did that, Neera Tanden wouldn't be here now. Rahm Emanuel wouldn't be here now. This pit in the stomach of all of these lefties that ended up voting for Biden and they get slapped in the face by a candidate that is right now, I would argue, putting you on notice. This is not going to be an administration where he feels he needs and values you. At the end of the day, you voted for him for nothing. He offered you nothing and you were willing to give him everything. And right now you're seeing the results of this. To me, if Biden does two things, this will be a success because I have no expectations. If he deals with the marijuana issue, meaning expunge these records, okay. If he deals with something with climate, expanding the number of solar panels and so forth, and actually tries to deal with it even if it's modest, okay. But I need to get across how little expectations I have. I have the expectations of him expanding the wars in the Middle East. I have the expectations of him giving a bunch of climate money to corporations and companies as opposed to giving those monies to individuals to ensure that those jobs remain here in the United States, to ensure that food deserts are eliminated, to ensure that homes have rebates and kickbacks to incentivize the use of solar panels and incentivize those things to be built here. Believe it or not, Donald Trump did that. He did that. He incentivized it being built here. It has something to do with the products and where those products are being bought. I'm just making a very basic point that right now it seems that the Democratic Party is doing everything it can to put lefties on notice that this administration, regardless of what you thought you might have accomplished in regards to the task force to mean anything, regardless of what you thought you accomplished with Sanders almost taking it into South Carolina, with plutocrats jumping in the race because they were so terrified that Sanders was going to take it. Chris Matthews not being able to control himself and getting himself fired on national television because he was so freaked out and perturbed by the fact that Sanders might take it and change the Democratic Party for a generation. Matthews, creature of the Democratic Party, even made the basic point, maybe we should tank it. So at the very least, if Trump wins, Sanders doesn't win it for a generation. This is the man that they call a walking apocalypse. But at the very least, they understood that if Sanders took it, just like FDR, the perspective, the idea, what it meant to be a Democrat, what it meant from the standpoint of that party, meaning healthcare, education, Social Security, and ensconcing those things, making those things crystal clear and solid that this is what we stand for. That is what a Sanders administration meant. Chris Matthews understood that. The Democratic Party understood that. And the last thing they wanted to happen was that. So what we have right now is basically Biden, and he will give you incremental stuff. And just like the other administrations of Democrats, that incrementalism, even though it's not enough, even though it doesn't soothe the rough edges of capitalism, that incrementalism is all you get. And what he would argue is the Republicans won't give you that much, so you better love the fact that you're getting this. I would make the very basic point that progressives are being put on notice that these picks, yes, these are picks that Biden wants. Yes, these are picks that are in line with Biden's thinking of the world, the era attended. She wanted to cut Social Security. She was against Medicare. She bragged about Medicaid cuts that Obama was making. Rahm Emanuel, again, I gave you a little bit of his history. I'm making the point that these people are being put there not because they trigger you, but because he's apathetic towards you. And that, to some degree, is even worse. Shane, what do you think? Do you know who Rahm Emanuel is, or do you know who Neera Tanden is?
Yeah,